My sister-in-law secretly opened my express delivery and snatched my bracelet. When I asked her for it, the whole family blamed me for being ignorant. A good-for-nothing like you doesn't deserve to wear a blood jade bracelet. I sneered and said, "You're pushing your luck." The next second, my sister-in-law went crazy, and they were all stunned. While I was away, my sister-in-law privately opened my express delivery. She also put on the fortune-turning bracelet that my best friend gave me on her own wrist. When I asked her for it, the whole family blamed me for being unreasonable. Strangely enough, after my sister-in-law wore the fortune-turning bracelet, it was as if her luck had been sucked dry. She was not only haunted by bad luck, but she even got pregnant with a ghost fetus. Only then did I know that my best friend had died long ago, and this bracelet could only take lives, not turn one's fortune around. 1. Learning that I was preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination, my best friend who was far away abroad sent me a string of beads. This is a fortune-turning bracelet. I specially went to get it. You must wear it every day. It will bring you good luck. Chin Shooting was my best friend. She immigrated abroad with her family during her sophomore year of college. I thought our relationship would gradually fade away after not seeing each other for many years, but unexpectedly, she always remembered me. I was very touched. Although I didn't believe in such things, I decided to wear it every day so as not to let my best friend down. Since I was reviewing at the city library, I asked my sister-in-law at home to sign for the express delivery and told her not to touch the things inside. She said with her mouth, "Who would care about a lousy express delivery?" But unexpectedly, when I came back, the express delivery on the table had already been opened, and the things inside were gone. My sister-in-law was sitting on the sofa watching videos. When she saw me come home, she turned around and rolled her eyes. "Oh, the young lady is finally willing to come back. Going out early and coming back late every day, I don't know what you're up to. I might even think you're doing something shady." I twitched the corner of my mouth and couldn't help retorting, "Do you have a bad memory or a problem with your ears? I've said many times that I'm preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination. Anyway, it's better than you being a parasite at home." Since I came home to prepare for the postgraduate entrance examination, my sister-in-law and my brother also moved back. On the surface, they said it was to make the family lively, but actually she was afraid that I would really get into graduate school and spend the family's money. After all, in her opinion, my parents' money was hers. When I was reviewing at home, she found all sorts of ways to disturb me. Sometimes she deliberately turned up the TV volume to the maximum in the living room, and sometimes she invited friends to have tea parties at home every now and then. I was so disturbed that I couldn't calm down. So I carried my school bag to the city library. Since she couldn't interfere with me anymore, she started to make sarcastic remarks and mock me. As soon as I finished speaking, her face darkened at once. "It's none of your business. This is my home now. You're an outsider living on my food and drinks. It's already good that I didn't ask you to pay, and you even dare to scheme against me." I cooled my face and didn't want to argue with her. "Where is my express delivery? Where did you put it?" My sister-in-law's eyes flashed. "Isn't it on the table? I opened it for you and there was nothing inside. I think you were just deceived." Saying that, she was about to walk into the room. I was sharp-eyed and saw a bit of red showing on her covered wrist. I grabbed her hand all at once. Sure enough, she was wearing a bracelet on her bare wrist. The light red bracelet shone with a strange luster under the incandescent lamp. I stared at her seriously. "What's this? Aren't you ashamed of taking other people's things?" 2. My sister-in-law was startled by me and suddenly shook off my hand, and said defiantly, "What other people's? Since it's in my house, it's mine." I stared at her intently and said coldly, "Li Shui. This was obtained by my best friend according to my birth date. How dare you wear it? Aren't you afraid of retribution? Seeing that I wouldn't let it go, Li Shui just tore off the mask of courtesy. Stop scaring me. I've checked. This is blood, Jade. You, a useless girl, don't deserve to wear such a good thing. Let me tell you, now I'm the mistress of this family. If you dare to talk back to me again, get married and get out of here as soon as possible. Since Li Shui married my elder brother, she said things like this more than once. She either explicitly or implicitly says that girls are a financial burden, complaining that our family shouldn't have supported my education. She thinks the right thing to do is to marry me off early to earn a bride price for my brother. But she herself is a woman. She once suffered from the patriarchal concept. After finally starting a new life, she turns the blade against her own kind. I pity her poor values, so I always avoid her sarcasm whenever I can. My mom also always advises me to give in to Li Shui more and not make things difficult for my brother. I was about to say something else when my mom came out of the room yawning. Seeing me arguing with my sister-in-law, her first reaction was to scold me. Come on, she's your sister-in-law. You should give in to her more. It's just a bracelet. It's not something valuable. What's wrong with giving it to her? Will it cost you a piece of your flesh? Your brother has a hard time making money outside. Don't make things difficult for him. It's always the same old thing. I usually let it go, but she shouldn't have taken my bracelet. It's a token of affection from my best friend who is far away in a foreign country. It can't be measured by money. I'll let things slide in other aspects, but not this. You must return it to me. Seeing my mom backing her up, Li Shui stood up straight, full of confidence. Give it or not, it's up to you. Anyway, this bracelet is mine now. I was so angry at her shameless behavior that I laughed. Fine. Then let's call the police. Let's see if you'll return it to me when the police come. I decisively took out my phone. The next second, a gust of palm wind came, and with a loud slap, my face was slapped hard to one side. My mom withdrew her hand and pointed at me, scolding, "You've wasted all your education. You don't know how to be humble at all. Quarreling with your sister-in-law over a lousy bracelet and even thinking about calling the police. Am I unable to discipline you?" I instinctively covered my face. It took me a while to come to my senses from the dizziness. My mom was furious, and her eyes were full of condemnation for me, a daughter who was not well behaved and obedient. Li Shui stood by gloating. I wondered if it was an illusion caused by the slap, but I saw thin black air crawling out of the bracelet and climbing up her arm. I blinked my eyes, and Li Shui's arm was snow white. There was no black air at all. It must be an illusion caused by my mom's slap, I thought bitterly. What kind of look are you giving your sister-in-law? Haven't you been beaten enough? My mom stood beside Li Shui, as if Li Shui was her own daughter and I was a heinous villain. I clenched and unclenched my fists. I was increasingly disappointed in my mom. I repeatedly told myself in my heart to be patient, just be patient. After these few months, I won't have to put up with them anymore. 3. I went back to my room. My best friend sent me a message. Yeah, have you put on the bracelet? I hesitated for a moment and typed, yes, I've put it on. It's so beautiful. Thank you, baby. One should not wash one's dirty linen in public. Moreover, out of an adult sense of pride, I didn't want others to know my situation, especially my best friend. Then she sent a cute emoji. I'm glad you like it. By the way, you must wear it every day. You can't even take it off when you take a shower. Only in this way can the bracelet bring you good luck, make everything go smoothly for you, and help you achieve excellent results in the exam. I typed with a smile on my face. My heart was warm. Got it, baby. You're so kind to me. Thank you. The chat page showed that she was typing for a long time. Finally, my best friend sent a message. Humph, it took me a lot of effort to get this. Wearing it every day is the greatest thanks to me. Remember to wear it every day. Smiling face with smiling eyes. I couldn't help laughing at that slightly threatening smiling face. Shooting has become superstitious after going abroad. She used to always say that such things are futile superstitions. But that was in the past. People change. Shooting is changing, my mom is changing, and haven't I changed too? I shook my head and stopped thinking too much. After washing up, I drifted off to sleep. In my dream, I tightly closed my eyes and frowned uneasily. I always felt that something had set its eyes on me, and there was a cold sensation on my neck. I suddenly opened my eyes, but all I saw was a grayish-white expanse. My mind went blank for a moment, and the next second, I started breathing rapidly. I found myself lying on the door, my eyes firmly fixed on the peephole. What I saw was the white of a person's eye. But wasn't I sleeping? A cold breath hit the back of my ear, and a chill ran down my spine. I slowly turned my head. Ah! A woman's heart-wrenching scream rang in my ears. I suddenly woke up and instinctively looked in the direction of the sound. It was from my sister-in-law's room. That voice. 4. I had another nightmare. I rubbed my temples tiredly. I don't know if it was because of the recent high pressure, but during this period, I always dreamed of a woman in a red dress, with disheveled hair, only showing a pair of whitish eyeballs, staring at me fixedly with tears of blood flowing from her eyes. There was a commotion outside. I glanced at the time and it was not even 6 o'clock yet. Thinking of the scream I heard, I sighed, opened the door and walked out. Li Shui's door was wide open, and the room was brightly lit. As soon as I walked in, I saw her snuggling sweetly in my brother's arms. My mom stood beside them with concern, holding a cup of steaming water in her hand. The warm yellow light shone on the three of them. They really looked like a happy family of 3. I sneered sarcastically. Suddenly, I remembered that during my sophomore year in college, due to the sequelae left by a car accident, I cried every day and almost woke up screaming from nightmares every night. The flames and blood from the exploding vehicle reappeared in my dreams every night. I lost 10 caddies in just 1 month. When my mom heard that I hadn't gone to class for a few days, she hit me on the calf with a stick and said, "I sent you to school hoping that you could make something of yourself and let me live a good life, not for you to enjoy yourself at school." My mom firmly believed that studying could change one's fate. Since my brother wasn't good at studying, she pinned her hopes on me. The daughter of my mom's work rival got $1 million annual salary after graduating with a master's degree. So, regardless of my sister-in-law's objections, she supported me in pursuing a master's degree. She wanted to save face and also hoped that I could make something of myself. At the very least, a daughter with a master's degree was worth much more than one with a bachelor's degree. She only had calculations for me, no affection. What about my sister-in-law? Li Shui sobbed, it was so scary. Just now, I saw a bloody woman hovering over me, staring at me with her eyes open. Her hair was wrapped around my neck. I don't know if it was because of the light, but I always felt that there were dark marks wrapped around Li Shui's neck, like the imprints left by something strangling her. My brother lovingly stroked her head and said, "Don't cry, baby. It was just a dream. I'm here." My mom kindly handed over a cup of water. An inappropriate laugh rang out. I scoffed, a clear conscience laughs at false accusations. "Sister-in-law, have you done something wrong? Otherwise, how could you see things you shouldn't?" "Zhao Yu! How can you talk like that?" Is that how you talk to your sister-in-law? My mom was the first to speak up. Li Shui's face turned deathly pale. Her eyes darted around, and she frowned and glared at me, saying, "What wrong could I have done? You're supposed to be a college student, yet you still believe in such things. I think sending you to school was a waste of money. You'd better go to work as soon as possible, right, Mom?" She really knew how to sow discord with my mom at every opportunity. I looked at her with a half-smile and said, "Really? You're still wearing the bracelet you stole from me on your wrist." "What bracelet?" My brother frowned. A flash of panic crossed Li Shui's eyes. She quickly covered her wrist and stubbornly said, "You gave it to me." Mom saw it. My mom responded while glaring at me. My elder brother eyed the two of them suspiciously and asked, "Did you take something from my sister?" Li Shui pinched his arm discontentedly, widened her eyes, and said angrily, "I'm your wife. You don't believe me, but that good-for-nothing girl? Can we still live this life?" Hearing this, my elder brother quickly coaxed her, "That's not what I meant." I was too lazy to watch their soppy behavior and said, "This bracelet was specially asked from a master by my friend for my postgraduate entrance examination. It's a fortune-turning bracelet that can bring good luck. My sister-in-law took it without asking. I never said I'd give it to her." Just as my elder brother was about to question her, Li Shui pulled his arm and whispered to him. Her voice wasn't very low, and words like good luck, blood jade, and valuable faintly came through. My elder brother's eyes flashed. He gave me an apologetic look and pulled me out. Rubbing his hands, he was embarrassed to speak. Yeah, your sister-in-law has been having nightmares these days. Can you lend her the fortune-turning bracelet to ease her mind?" I mocked, "Is it to ease her mind or out of greed?" A look of guilt flashed across his eyes. "Just do it for my sake. This is just once. Otherwise, your sister-in-law won't let it go. Your so-called sake is as valuable as ever." He forced a smile. "Let's not mention the past. Be a good girl and let your sister-in-law wear the bracelet." I lowered my eyes and had to compromise. "By the way, brother," I looked at him deeply and slowly said, "tell your wife that to make the bracelet work to its fullest, she must wear it day and night and never take it off." 5. Maybe feeling that she had got a great bargain, early in the morning, Li Shui stood in front of the mirror, happily doing her makeup on her face. She put on a little dress and pulled my elder brother to go on a date. I knew they were going out to look at houses. Half a year ago, when she married my elder brother, our family had already paid in full for an apartment for my elder brother. Li Shui always minded that the apartment was my elder brother's pre-marriage property, so she coaxed my elder brother to sell it and bought an off-plan apartment in the east of the city. Counting the time, it should be almost time for the handover of the apartment. Seeing me always staring at her, Li Shui said haughtily, "What are you looking at? Even if you wear this bracelet, you're still a plain Jane. Later, your brother and I are going out. If things go well, consider it a good deed you've done." My mom chimed in, "You're really far-sighted, Shui. Who would have thought that the houses in the east of the city have risen so much in price? It's a fortune. Unlike some people who've been to school for so many years but still haven't earned a single cent for the family." My elder brother glanced at me guiltily and tugged at Li Shui's sleeve. "Stop talking. Let's go quickly." In a place where no one could see, the black chi on Li Shui's arm had already climbed onto her face. A figure in red clothes was faintly sticking to her back, following her every step. 6. After packing up my things, I went to the library. On the way, I was silently reciting words when a man who claimed to be a celestial master blocked my way. He had squinty eyes, a sharp-mouthed and monkey-cheeked face, and the gray-white Taoist robe on him looked out of place. Miss, I see that your forehead is darkened, and your whole body is shrouded in ghostly chi. This is a sign of great misfortune. I took a step back and said speechlessly, are you going to say that I'm about to have a bloody disaster? Dude, this old trick is so overused. No, 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 he frowned and kept rattling the prayer beads in his hand. It's the people around you. They've touched something they shouldn't have. There are vengeful spirits haunting them. I'm afraid that in the near future. Because of his interruption, I had to start memorizing the words I just remembered all over again. This guy was as annoying as Li Shui. I interrupted him impatiently, okay, dude. I'm in a hurry. Gotta go. You're such a stubborn girl, the celestial master grabbed me. I was startled and quickly shook off his hand, shouting, if you keep being so touchy-feely, I'll call the police right now. He stepped aside helplessly. I glared at him and quickly walked forward. The heavens have their way, and humans have theirs. Humans and ghosts follow different paths. The man's long-drawn sigh sounded from behind, fading away like a distant and eerie echo that sent shivers down my spine. I studied at the library until it closed. As soon as I got home, I saw my bedroom door was open, with a faint light seeping out. A woman with long, loose hair stood in front of my bed, motionless, like an inanimate sculpture. My heart was pounding. Just as I got closer, the woman suddenly went crazy and grabbed my quilt tightly, muttering, good friends, back to back, never part. Hearing the lyrics, I was stunned for a moment, then slapped her on the shoulder and said, Li Shui, what on earth are you doing? Li Shui suddenly stopped her action, let go of the quilt, and stiffly turned her neck. Her skin was so pale that she didn't look human at all. Her eyes were bloodshot. She slowly raised her hands, making a gesture to strangle me. I glanced at her, and the bracelet on her wrist seemed even redder, as if there was blood flowing inside. I questioned her, what are you doing in my room? What do you want to take from me again? Seeing that I was going to pull her, she quickly retracted her hands and resumed her arrogant look, I remember you have a necklace. Since you don't wear it anyway, let me wear it for a while. I was dissatisfied with her bossy attitude, oh, sorry, I've given it away. Ungrateful brat. She glared at me and left the room. Thinking about her abnormal behavior just now, I couldn't help asking, have you felt anything strange recently? She turned back and rolled her eyes at me. Her face was pale, and her bright red lips looked extremely terrifying. I feel strange all over as soon as I see you. So you'd better get married and stop staying at home. Before I could say a word, she turned around and went back to her bedroom. Soon after, the sound of running water came from inside. I was sitting on the bed when I suddenly felt a thump beside my thigh. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a bead strung on a red thread. Did that swindling celestial master on the road put it in my pocket? Just then, there was a sudden sound of glass shattering outside. 7. I immediately ran to the bathroom door and asked, what's going on? There was no response from inside, but the bead in my hand inexplicably started to get hot. I had a bad feeling. Just as I was about to open the door, my mother rushed over in one swift motion and pushed me aside forcefully. Schwer, open the door for Mom. What's happened? Li Shui opened the door looking as pale as a sheet. Blood was dripping from her arm. She pointed shakily at the mirror and said, I just saw, there was a woman in the mirror, all covered in blood. Her hair stretched out from the mirror and wrapped around my stomach. Probably really frightened, Li Shui stammered for a long time before she could speak a complete sentence. My mother naturally didn't believe in such supernatural things. Schwer, have you been under too much pressure recently and had a hallucination? Li Shui got anxious. It's true. I've seen that woman in my dreams. She's wearing a red dress, has long hair, and her eyes are white. It's so scary. Hearing this description, my heart skipped a beat. I pulled Li Shui out and walked up to the mirror that she had smashed into pieces. The closer I got, the hotter the bead in my hand became, turning red from the heat. I had also seen the woman Li Shui described in my dreams many times. Could this bead really sense the presence of ghosts? Suddenly, the phone rang. Li Shui absent-mindedly answered it, then let out a scream, "What?" The next second, she closed her eyes and fainted. 8. Li Shui was pregnant. Normally, this would be good news. But at the moment, my mother and my brother were sitting silently on the sofa, and Li Shui was lying in the hospital bed with a vacant look in her eyes. The three of them seemed to be written all over with 4 characters, as if mourning one's parents. No other reason. They sold their marital home and emptied their savings to buy a new house. But because the developer suddenly went bankrupt and ran away, it became an unfinished building. Perhaps this is just the unpredictability of life. During the day, they were still envisioning a beautiful future, but at night, reality dealt them a heavy blow. The news about unfinished buildings came on TV. Li Shui rolled her eyes, picked up a glass and smashed it at the TV, grabbed her hair and went crazy. Why? It was clearly so profitable. Why did it suddenly become an unfinished building? Why am I so unlucky? Thinking of something, she frantically tugged at the bracelet on her wrist. Zhao Yu. Did you do this to me? This bracelet is not a lucky charm bracelet at all. Otherwise, why did all these things happen to me as soon as I put it on? It must be you who harmed me. I was so angry that I laughed. Are you kidding me? You insisted on grabbing this bracelet and wearing it. You also bought the house by yourself. If my brother hadn't called me, I wouldn't have known anything about it at all. Li Shui wouldn't listen at all. She pounced on me and tried to strangle me. I slapped her, and my hand was still trembling from the impact. Li Shui covered her face in disbelief, looking at me with a murderous look in her eyes. You actually dared to hit me. Bitch! I shook my aching hand, half smiling. I told you before that if it's not yours, don't touch it. You just didn't believe me. Now the evil spirit in this bracelet has attached itself to you. She will follow you every day. Do you regret it now? It's too late. Li Shui was stunned for a moment. After a while, she stammered in refutation, I'm pregnant with your family's child now, your own nephew. If anything happens to me, you can't get away with it. You wouldn't dare to do this. Really? My gaze slowly moved down to her flat belly, paused for a moment, then moved back to her terrified face, sneering, you can give it a try. Anyway, it's just one dead woman and one dead baby. My brother finally came to his senses and pulled Li Shui's arm to persuade her, this bracelet is so strange. What if there really is something bad in it? You're still pregnant with a child. My mother chimed in, yes, Shui. We can't be careless about my grandson. This lousy bracelet was originally hers. Let this girl take the blame. I gave my mother a cold look. How could a mother be so biased? I rolled my eyes, yes. You'd better give the bracelet back to me quickly. My best friend said that apart from me, no one can wear this bracelet. Otherwise, they'll only be haunted by bad luck. Li Shui stroked the bracelet reluctantly with a look of reluctance in her eyes. Just as she was about to take it off, thinking of something, she stared at me suspiciously. You're not deliberately lying to me, are you? Seeing me stunned, she had an I-caught-you look on her face. You just want to get the bracelet back and made up such a ridiculous reason. Do you think I'm stupid? This is blood, Jade. I could sell it to anyone and get a lot of money for it. Why should I give it to you? Looking at Li Shui's crazy appearance, I hesitated to say something. Her way of thinking was really weird. Forget it. Good advice won't persuade those who are determined to die. 9. The plan couldn't keep up with the changes. Before Li Shui could sell the bracelet, something happened to her. First, her arms and thighs were covered with dense blisters. After they burst, they turned yellow and then black, gradually spreading all over her body. Her belly swelled up quickly like a balloon. The stretched-out belly was covered with deep, wrinkled black lines, and the things inside moved from time to time. Finally, she started to get anxious and cried, wanting to return the bracelet to me. But it was too late. The bracelet was tightly wrapped around her wrist like a blood-soaked vine, becoming a part of her body. My mother was worried about the child in her belly and directly picked up a knife to cut the bracelet off. It didn't matter that this chop landed directly on the flesh. Li Shui let out ear-splitting howls in pain. Mom! Li Shui burst into tears from the pain and looked at my mom reproachfully. She reached out to touch the wound on her arm but felt no blood at all. All the blood was absorbed by the bracelet the moment it flowed out. What's going on? My mom could no longer maintain that haughty attitude and stammered as she spoke. That bracelet can't bring good luck at all. It can only take lives. I paused for a moment, a bitter feeling welling up in my heart. My friend died 2 years ago. Her ghost is parasitizing on this bracelet. She wanted to take over my body, but unexpectedly, my sister-in-law grabbed it instead. The ghost will gradually erode your vital energy through the bracelet. When your vital energy is completely drained, it's the time for her to take your life. Hearing this, the three of them were completely stunned. After being in a daze for a few seconds, my mom raised her hand to slap me. Seeing me dodge, her anger flared up even more. Why didn't you say it earlier? Do you want to kill your sister-in-law? She's pregnant with our family's child. How could I have such a vicious daughter like you? As she said that, she reached out to grab my hair. I stepped aside and pushed her to the ground. I just found out about it. Besides, would you believe me if I told you? I've asked Li Shui to return the bracelet to me again and again. How did you talk about me then? The words they wanted to refute got stuck in their throats. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed it. Instead, they would have accused me of being disobedient and ignorant. They would say that I had wasted my education and was so superstitious that I cursed my sister-in-law for a bracelet. They had said such things too many times. Why should I ask for trouble? Moreover, the bright and radiant smile of the young girl appeared in my mind, and my heart ached uncontrollably. I want to ask Chen shooting myself. Weren't we supposed to be lifelong friends? Why did she do this to me? Several times I dreamed about that woman, Li Shui's strange behavior, and the sudden encounter with the celestial master all gave me a bad premonition. So, introduced by a friend, I found a well-known spiritual medium. She told me that Chen Shooting had died 2 years ago and that this bracelet could only take lives, not bring good luck. I didn't believe it at first, until I found that the chat history between me and Chen Shooting had stopped at 2 years ago. I had never deleted the chat history between us, and no one else had ever touched my phone except me. I then managed to contact Chen Shooting's family, and from them, I confirmed her death. So, the one who had been chatting with me all this time was not a human but a ghost. Li Shui stood there, stunned, with pale and trembling lips, but still stubbornly said, "You're talking nonsense. You must have done something to this bracelet and are trying to scare me by pretending to be superstitious. I won't be fooled by you. Mom, husband, let's go to the hospital right now. I don't believe there isn't a hospital that can cure me." I was speechless. Look at yourself now. Are you sure you won't be taken to the hospital and treated as a monster for research? Stop deceiving yourself. Hearing this, Li Shui completely broke down. She threw herself into my brother's arms and wailed loudly. Her already blood-shot eyes were as red as a ghost's. My brother stiffly turned his head and pleaded with me. Sister, after all, she is your sister-in-law. You can't just watch her die. My mom also got scared and pleaded with me through tears. There's your brother's child in your sister-in-law's belly, yeah. The child is innocent. I lowered my eyes. Although I hated Li Shui and resented her viciousness, the child in her belly was innocent. After much hesitation, I still took them to the spiritual medium's residence, hoping to stop all this before the fierce ghost took action. It was already late at night when we arrived at the spiritual medium's place. The night was pitch black, and only the faint light ahead vaguely illuminated the winding path underfoot. Just as I reached the door, I heard a loud noise coming from inside. I quickly dodged to one side. Immediately afterwards, with a bang, the door flew out. A woman in a Taoist robe fell not far from me, her eyes still glaring fixedly ahead. My heart sank. Suddenly, I heard a sharp shout. Black gas billowed from the woman's head and gradually gathered into a human figure. Before I could get a clear look, the black gas dissipated in an instant. The witch walked out of the house with a whisk in her hand. She wasn't surprised to see us. My mother and the other two were already scared out of their wits by the scene. They knelt on the ground, kowtowing and begging the witch to save them. She seemed to have anticipated our arrival and led us to the inner chamber. There was a vermilion magic circle drawn on the ground. The corners of the circle were connected by black ropes. The surrounding area was filled with a strong smell of blood, eerie and mysterious. This is an evil expelling formation. Once even the most ferocious ghost enters this formation, it will vanish into thin air within an hour. After what had just happened, they trusted the witch even more. Li Shui couldn't bear the strange feeling in her body any longer, but my mother grabbed her. May I ask? My mother stammered, will this formation of yours have any impact on the baby in my daughter-in-law's belly? I never expected that at such a life and death moment, my mother didn't care about the lives of the living but was concerned about an unformed baby instead. Old woman, what do you mean? Li Shui shook off my mother's hand and scowled, I'm telling you, even if this child dies in my belly, it's your daughter's fault. I don't care. My elder brother also tried to persuade, Mom, Xiaojun and I are still young. As long as we're alive, we'll have children in the future. Shut up, my mother shouted, what do you know? You've been married to her for over a year and only got this one child. And now she's haunted by a ghost. Who knows if she can have children in the future? Poor my unborn grandson. He's going to suffer such a disaster before he's even born. Li Shui was going crazy. She frantically slapped her belly, old hag, open your eyes and see clearly. How can a normal fetus be so big and wriggling when it's not even formed yet? This is a ghost fetus. Seeing that the two were about to quarrel, the witch stepped forward, stop arguing. After the evil ghost vanishes, your daughter-in-law and the baby in her belly will be safe and sound. Hearing the witch's guarantee, my mother completely calmed down. Li Shui snorted and lay down in the center of the formation. The witch mumbled something and formed seals with the whisk. Immediately, a cold wind blew up. The black gas gradually enveloped Li Shui. She let out a painful wail, and her heart-rending screams echoed across the sky. I watched her writhing and contorting in the center of the formation coldly, and an indescribable sense of pleasure welled up in my heart. 12. Time passed by, second by second. Master, how is my wife? My elder brother frequently glanced at the center of the formation. Unfortunately, he could only see clouds of black gas. Suddenly, I let out a soft laugh. How is she? Can't you tell? She's about to die of pain. My elder brother frowned. What are you talking nonsense about? Now she can finally experience the feeling of having her entire body burned by the raging fire, the pain that makes her soul tremble. Zhao Yu! My elder brother roared and lunged at me. I took out a talisman and threw it at him. He was instantly immobilized on the spot. My mother tried to run, but in a blink of an eye, she was also immobilized on the ground by a spell-binding talisman. This talisman was originally prepared for me by the witch. No, to be precise, according to seniority, I should call her aunt. She is Chen Shooting's aunt. 2 years ago, one of us lost a close friend, and the other lost the only relative. We searched through all the ancient records and finally found a way to bring the dead back to life in a tattered ancient book. And Li Shui, the culprit who killed Shu Ting, is the best container. 13. During her sophomore year, Chen Shooting got a spot as an exchange student at a famous overseas university. I heard that there was an ancient temple in the suburbs where praying for a safety talisman was especially effective, so I dragged her along to get one. Everything went smoothly. But unexpectedly, when we got out of the car suddenly had a brake failure, and we tumbled down the cliff with the car. At the last moment before the car exploded, Chen Shooting pushed me out of the car, and she died in that car accident. I'll remember all my life how big the fire was that day. The heat wave hitting my body was unbearably painful. I didn't even dare to imagine how much pain she and the flames must have suffered. This car accident was finally concluded as an accident. I always thought it was my fault that Shooting died. If I hadn't insisted on dragging her to pray for that stupid safety talisman, none of this would have happened. Until a year ago, on the day my elder brother married Li Shui. Li Shui got drunk and vomited all over herself. When I was helping her change clothes, I heard her mumbling Shooting's name. Only then did I find out that Shooting's death was an out-and-out murder. They were schoolmates. Li Shui was caught red-handed by Shooting when she was stealing her roommate's jewelry. On the surface, she cried bitterly and begged Shooting not to call the police, and even swore never to do it again. But secretly, she was afraid of being threatened by it, so she simply tampered with the brakes. My elder brother knew the truth all along but kept silent. Your sister-in-law is young and doesn't know any better. Just let it go for my sake. The dead can't come back to life. Do you want to make the family restless for the sake of an insignificant dead person? But Chen Shooting was never an insignificant person. In high school, because of my withdrawn personality and poor communication skills, I offended the school bully. She vowed to make me regret being alive. When I was in despair, it was Chen Shooting who pulled me out of that dirty toilet. She was my best friend in my life. My aunt and I spent 2 years gathering Shooting's soul into a jade bracelet and nourishing it with our essence and blood every day. Finally, it took on a human form. And the last step was to find a suitable container for the ghost. Li Shui has an extremely lean body, making her the most suitable container. I went back home on the pretext of preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination and revealed that my father had left me a considerable inheritance before his death. Then she couldn't wait to go back home. I deliberately let her hear that I had a friend far away in a foreign country who had spent a lot of money to send me a jade bracelet and let her sign for the express delivery. Greedy as she was, Li Shui indeed took the bracelet for herself. She happily thought it was a lucky bracelet, but she didn't know that there was a vengeful ghost she had killed inside the bracelet, just waiting to suck her energy dry. I thought Li Shui would recognize Shooting when she saw her, but since Shooting's face had been burned beyond recognition with wounds all over it, and besides, she was so scared that she didn't look closely at all. 14. Everything that followed developed as planned, but I didn't expect that Li Shui was pregnant. and the child in her womb directly turned into a ghost fetus because of being contaminated by the ghostly aura. Although I hate her, the child is innocent. I won't be like her, killing innocent people out of selfishness. After the exorcism formation clears the ghostly aura from the fetus, I'll settle the remaining score with Li Shui properly. I quietly guarded in front of the formation, but a change happened in an instant. Hey, girl, you just won't listen to others at all. A man's voice came from behind. I suddenly turned around, and a man in a gray-white Taoist robe strode in. It was that celestial master. When her aunt saw him come in, her face changed drastically. Oh no! He's a notorious evil cultivator in the underworld. He's heartless and cruel, and has harmed countless people. I'm afraid he's set his sights on us now. The celestial master rolled his eyes. Uncle, your skin has gotten a lot thicker these past few years. You're getting better at telling lies with your eyes open. Using a body of extreme to refine a ghost fiend. I can't believe you came up with such a sinister method. Aren't you afraid of getting struck by lightning one day? The fortune teller snorted. Hypocrite. I was totally confused. Ghost fiend? What do you mean? Li Shui was clearly just a container for a soul to possess a corpse. Why would you want to refine a ghost fiend? The celestial master shook his head. There's no such thing as a soul possessing a corpse. There's simply no way to bring the dead back to life in this world. It's all a lie she made up to deceive you. What's inside that bracelet isn't your friend's soul at all. It's a little ghost she cultivated with the spirits of 100 infants, and it entered your sister-in-law's womb. Now, with a body of extreme, the body of a ghost mother, and this evil gathering formation, once the ghost fiend is successfully refined, you'll all become its offerings. As soon as these words were spoken, I was greatly shocked. Evil gathering formation? I looked at the formation altar in disbelief. If you don't believe me, look. The celestial master drew a talisman with his hand. At the same time, accompanied by a shrill scream, the black chi around the formation gradually dissipated. Li Shui was lying on the ground, unconscious and in an unknown state of life or death. There were black runes printed on her exposed skin. Her belly had grown even bigger and was bulging grotesquely. One could even see the shape of a fully formed fetus. The ghost infant was about to break out of her belly. The fortune teller laughed maniacally. So what if you've discovered it? My great Tao is already accomplished. You'll all obediently become offerings for my ghost child. My mother and someone else let out a terrified wail and fainted. I looked at the fortune teller in disbelief, still holding on to a shred of hope. Didn't you say that as long as I put the bracelet on Li Shui, Qin shooting would be revived? You're her aunt. Why are you doing this? The fortune teller suddenly smiled. Silly child, there's no such thing as bringing the dead back to life in this world. But don't worry. Since you've obediently done things for me, I'll have the ghost child only eat half of your soul. You can keep the other half and go find my little niece underground. The fortune teller sneered and walked towards me, saying regretfully, what a pity. My niece also had a body of extreme, but she died before I could do anything to her. I couldn't even summon her soul. I stared at her in horror and took step after step back. Just as she was about to make a move, the celestial master took a quick step forward and got entangled with her. As he fought, he shouted at me, "The ghost infant is about to be born. Quickly put the bead I gave you into Li Shui's mouth. It can buy us some time." 15. I quickly rushed to Li Shui's side and took out the bead from my pocket. As soon as I got close to Li Shui, the bead instantly turned bright red all over. I pried open her tightly closed mouth and was about to put the bead in when I suddenly paused. A thought flashed through my mind. It seemed that this bead was meant for Li Shui from the start, but how did he know that Li Shui would get pregnant? What are you standing there for? There's no time left. Li Shui's belly had swollen to an astonishing degree. Her skin was almost transparent. The ghost infant in her belly suddenly tilted its head and smiled at me, then started moving violently, as if it was about to break through her belly. Without any time to think further, I forced myself to put the bead into Li Shui's mouth. As soon as the bead entered her mouth, the ghost infant seemed to be tied up by something and gradually quieted down. Just as I let out a sigh of relief, I heard the Celestial Master shout, "Watch out!" The next second, a whisk wrapped around my neck. "How dare you ruin my good deed? Go to hell!" She tightened her grip. The whisk tightened around my neck. I struggled violently, but the oxygen was still being drawn out of my nostrils bit by bit. When I was about to lose consciousness, I vaguely saw a white light flash before my eyes. Shooting walked out of the light in a red dress, smiling at me. Her black hair cascaded like a waterfall, and her smile was bright. Her colorful skirt fluttered like the dancing tongues of fire that day. Tears rolled down from the corners of my eyes, and I completely lost consciousness. 16. 3 days later, I met the Celestial Master in the hospital. He covered his chest, his face as pale as a sheet. It seemed that the fierce battle with the witch had taken a heavy toll on him. Qinling's spiritual cultivation has been completely destroyed, and she was devoured by the little ghost she had raised. I've also dealt with the ghost baby on your sister-in-law. But she was so severely shocked that she's still in a coma. Your family is taking care of her. When she wakes up, the police will surely bring her to justice. Don't worry, everything is over. I rubbed the necklace around my neck and after a long while, slowly said, "You deliberately waited for me by the roadside that day. How did you know what I was doing? Did someone tell you?" I stared intently at him and said, "Was it Qin shooting? I saw it. It wasn't an illusion." The Celestial Master opened his mouth and reluctantly admitted, "It was indeed your friend who approached me. She didn't want you to go astray, so she pleaded with me to save you once." Hearing this, I became even more urgent. "What about now? Is she still here?" The Celestial Master sighed, "The paths of the living and the dead are separate. She's been reincarnated." I let out a soft laugh and murmured, "She really loves being a hero as always." "But why? Why does she always get to be the hero? Did she even ask for my opinion? What am I supposed to do then? She saved me so many times, but I couldn't even save her once." The Celestial Master let out a long sigh. "Miss, she didn't want you to hold on anymore. Look forward." I was stunned for a moment and blankly said, "Did she really say that? But isn't she right behind me?" 17. The shock that day was too great. After Li Shui woke up, she became crazy. Squatting in the corner hugging her knees, she talked to herself. She was sent to a mental hospital. Not long after, she died by self-immolation, and I went to Qin Shooting's graveside. The girl in the photo was smiling brightly, but she would never be alive and vivid again. The Celestial Master comfortingly patted me on the shoulder. "You still have your own path to follow." I nodded. Then, remembering something, I said awkwardly, "By the way, Celestial Master, I'm sorry for my bad attitude towards you that day. I judged you by your appearance. I apologize." The Celestial Master gave a hearty laugh. "Hey, it's okay. Appearance is just a superficial thing. Those who practice the Tao don't care about these." I touched the necklace and said, "Really? You're truly detached. I almost thought you were the same as Qinling. WH. He had just uttered one word when a bluish-white ghost hand pierced through his chest from behind. "Why aren't you talking, Mr. Celestial Master?" He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. "Why?" I tilted my head and smiled. "Don't you know there's a saying that when the snipe and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits?" After saying that, I took the blood gourd from his waist, shook it by my ear, and exclaimed, "So this is the ghostly evil. When did you discover?" He wanted to ask more, but that hand crushed his heart. I bent down to hide the fallen necklace in my clothes, curled my lips and said, "Because shooting has never left me." He fell to the ground unwillingly, his eyes still glaring fixedly ahead. I bent down and followed his line of sight, then gave a charming smile to the one behind me. "Shooting, he's still looking at you." The girl in the red dress turned her head and showed her red lips in a grin. A cold aura hit my neck, and a faint song echoed in my ear. "Good friends, back to back, never apart."